Good morning. Welcome to the live morning show presented by Don Bullock Chevrolet. I'm Lim Carnegie, and I want to thank you so very much for starting your morning off with us and giving us a little bit of your time on this Monday morning, August 14th, year of our Lord 2023. It's a hot one outside. This was one of those mornings when I got up and took the dog out, just almost broke a sweat just stepping outside the front door. We're going to have Fred's first weather forecast in just a moment, and I'm afraid if you don't like this weather, he's not going to have very good news for you for the rest of the week. But I think it's going to stay like this pretty much for the rest of the week. We're going to bring Fred back on after the weather forecast to talk a little more in depth about what the heat is going to be like today, temperature and real feel, and just some things to keep in mind that if you have to go outside and be outside in the heat anytime at all today, to keep in mind to stay safe and how to deal with it and how to stay safe and out of trouble if you have to be in the heat today. We've got really a two-segment show today. We're going to, as I said, we're going to have Fred's weather forecast in just a moment, talk a little bit about the heat. At 7:20, Keene Gravely, Chairman of the Board of Rocky Mount Preparatory School, is going to be with us, and we're going to have an extended period of time with Keene to talk about some of the issues that have come up recently regarding Rocky Mount Prep and some findings that have come up from an audit by the Department of Public Instruction. Keene is going to be here to talk about that in depth and also talk a little bit about a new leader for Rocky Mount Prep and some of the things that are going on there too. But as this story came up last week, we decided that the right thing to do was to have really the horse's mouth, Keene, to come on and talk about this. Well, he'll be here at 7:20 for an extended interview and discussion about this. At 8 o'clock, my co-host Wayne Holloman will join me, and we're going to spend the rest of the show talking about the casino, proposed casino, and especially the meeting that was held Friday night regarding the casino and primarily the people who do not believe that bringing the casino to Rocky Mount would be in the best interests of the community. We have some video of that, and we're going to be sharing that, and we will be addressing those issues based regarding the video and specifically the meeting on Friday night. If you have comments or would like to join in the discussion about the casino after the 8 o'clock hour, 252-407-1111 is on a number. One call, 3 minutes per call, one call per day is the rule. We look forward to your comments on that. But let's step aside right now and go to the best weatherman, the most experienced weatherman, and frankly, the finest gentleman I know, Mr. Fred Holsworth, who will give us our first look at weather. And then Fred is going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about the heat that we can expect this afternoon. Welcome back. We're going to ask Fred just to hang around for a couple of minutes. Fred, first of all, I guess I can say thank you for that forecast. It certainly is going to be warm. Let me just ask you, first of all, for our viewers that may not know, when you use the term heat index, exactly what is it and how is that calculated?
That is a calculation using the temperature and the humidity together. And that's what it will feel like, on your body. So today, the temperature during the afternoon will feel like 107 degrees.
And from that standpoint, in terms of looking at what's causing this, I have noticed at home that my barometer has just been stuck at about 29.5 inches for days. Are we going to see any change in that as this front from the west moves through that's going to bring us the showers tomorrow?
Eventually, it'll break down. We've been locked in quite of high pressure over this summer. And I guess one thing you can blame it on is the oceans. The oceans are our weather factory. And the oceans have been at record heat levels this season. And they're really not backing off any yet. They will start to another maybe a couple of weeks, and we might see an uptick in Atlantic tropical cyclonic activity.
Fred, any suggestions or recommendations for people who are going to have to go outside into the weather this afternoon? Anything they should look at or think about to protect themselves and keep themselves out of trouble?
I would suggest dressing in lightweight clothing, as light a color as you can, white or maybe yellow, something like that. And then just take water with you. Water is the best thing to drink right now, certainly not any alcoholic beverages. They will make you feel cool at the very outset, but then they kind of warm you up, so you don't want that. But water is the best thing to drink right now, and just lightweight clothing if you have to go out. If you don't have to, the best thing to do is stay inside.
A big floppy hat, too, can make a big difference on a day like this.
Right.
Yes. Fred, I want to thank you for sticking around just a couple of minutes, just to give our viewers a little more information and to take this seriously, because yesterday I was out in the afternoon in and out of the car running some errands. To get in and out of the car was just like stepping into an oven. It was extremely warm and really just brought home just how dangerous it could be to be outside any extended period of time if you don't have to in days like this. Thank you for sharing that with our folks. See you again in a few minutes.
All right.
Something else just to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, if you have pets, in weather like this, there is no safe time to leave them in a car outside. There's not a minute. It just doesn't. It's going to be very dangerous to them and very damaging to their health. Please do not take your pets out and leave them in the car any period of time while you're out of that with it. It's no safe time. I want to pivot. And I want to share something with you that is from a story that we have all heard about over the last several weeks, several days. And that is the very tragic wildfires that consumed a part of the state of Hawaii last week. We have all heard increasing and very disturbing and very sad stories about people that have lost their lives in this. But it continues to emerge stories of how people who are on the ground dealt with the fire. And I ran across one yesterday that I would like to share with you because it struck me as both moving and also disturbing at the same time. I think this is one of those stories that is important to hear and to understand that even in the year 2023 and in the United States, we still, from Mother Nature's standpoint, are at her mercy. I want to read this to you. In the dark, cold water off Lahaina Tuesday night, Annalise Cochran clutched one of her neighbors for warmth. Both women shivering and struggling to breathe through the smoke and fumes, Cochran felt like she was losing consciousness. Quote, "I don't know if it was the smoke or the cold or the fumes," Cochran, 30, recounted in a telephone interview. "It was the closest I felt to death." Cochran and her neighbor survived the inferno in Lahaina by spending more than 5 hours in the water next to a rock wall at the edge of town. Another of their neighbors, an 86-year-old man who for a time survived nearby, did not live through the night. The fire that took the town was swift and brutal. Early that morning, Cochran had seen reports of a wildfire nearby, but that wasn't unusual for the area, where she had lived for 7 years. In the afternoon, the wind whipped up so strong that Cochran began taking videos of flying leaves. Cochran, a Maryland native who works as a training manager for an ocean conservation nonprofit, went to take a shower. When she dressed and went outside at around 4 p.m., the smoke was growing thicker and she began to hear fire alarms going off in the buildings nearby. There was no text message telling her to evacuate, no emergency sirens. To her shock, she saw flames in a parking lot about a block away, and she ran to her apartment to grab a few essentials and jumped in her car. She turned towards the water, hoping to drive out of town to safety, but found the road blocked by abandoned cars. She picked up a tourist who later decided to leave her car because he wanted to head in a different direction than Cochran did. She never saw him again. When the building next to her car began to burn, she said she got out and headed for the water. This is the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. She found two of her neighbors, a middle-aged woman named Edna and an 86-year-old man named Freeman, who had difficulty walking. They all went over the barrier wall down to the hulking black rocks below to escape the flames. They spent hours in the water, occasionally scrambling over onto the rocks, trying to stay away from flying embers and noxious fumes, but also moving closer to the flames when they began to feel dangerously cold. Cochran saw people grab debris and float off into deeper waters, which horrified her. She works on the ocean and knows the dangers of currents and hypothermia. Quote, people just chose to drift out. I feared for those people's lives, end quote. The worst part of the ordeal, she said, came when cars along the shoreline began to explode, sending toxic fumes and intense heat rolling towards the water. That's when Cochran and Edna felt near collapse. The women held each other as they shook and tried to stay awake. They talked about their families and promised each other they would make it. At one point, Cochran said she called out to Freeman, who was a little further down the rocky beach, and asked how he was. He just smiled and made a shaka gesture with his hand, middle fingers down, thumb and little finger out, to indicate he was all right, even though Cochran knew he was suffering. Later, she saw him slumped against the wall, unmoving. She believes he succumbed to the fumes. I share that with you for a couple of reasons. One, if you've been to Hawaii, you know its natural beauty is just almost unparalleled. Many people call it paradise, and it is probably as close to paradise on the planet as you'll find. Think about living in paradise, yet being confronted on a moment's notice with something as horrible as a wildfire. I'm not sure that the people that live through it will be more scarred by the fire themselves or the fact that this happened in paradise. And we need to have a conversation about why the local government had no response plan in place. How does this happen over a period of hours so that people like Ms. Cochran did not have even a text or a phone call or any, not government sirens, but it was private sirens in private buildings that went off that alerted her to the closeness of the fire. I believe there's a real issue that needs to be discussed by the local government and by the Hawaiian government about how that happened and what their responsibility is to their citizens. And I would also say, if you do any sort of online search, you're going to see a lot of stories come out like this. And there are some very different stories about what happened that day in Hawaii from people that are there. Survivors, some of them are telling very different stories about how this occurred and what happened. We can have that discussion, and we should have that discussion legitimately and openly about all the people about how this happened, because these are our neighbors. We are all humans. They're our brothers and sisters. They're also our fellow citizens in the state of Hawaii about how this happened. We can also have a discussion about how it's interesting that if you know anything about the geology of Hawaii, you know that one of the things that opened it up for humans to live there is that there is a vast, still somewhat untapped, over 1,000-year supply of fresh water under the ground. This water was trapped when the islands were made and formed millions of years ago by the geological formation that formed them. It was that untapping of that water that allowed people to live there. In fact, the greatest threat from the water is not that the water is there, it's from the flooding that can happen when the water gets out of control. So I think there's a serious question to be asked. How do you have a drought in a place that has thousands of years of fresh water, the majority of which is used for irrigation and only a fraction of it is used for human consumption? How do you have a drought there? There are some really legitimate questions that are coming up about that and what the government's role is with that. But if nothing else, I would ask you, if this story touched you, to take a moment and say a prayer for the people that lost their lives, but also the people that survived. I believe the ones that survived will need our help, our support, our emotional support, and our prayers very much as they deal with this. And if they choose to go back to Hawaii, how they're going to deal with their lives being changed by this event. We're going to step aside right now for our first commercial break. When we come back, Keene Gravely, Chairman of the Board of Rocky Mount Prep, will be here to discuss some current issues with that. You're watching the live morning show presented by Don Bullock Chevrolet, and we will be right back. Welcome back to the live morning show presented by Don Bullock Chevrolet. We are honored to have Keene Gravely with us. Keene, the Chairman of the Board of Rocky Mount Prep. Keene, good to have you here this morning. Good to see you too, sir. Welcome. Keene, let's just get started. There was some information that came out Friday and Saturday regarding the Charter School Advisory Board, and some information was brought up by a Department of Public Instruction review of the school. I'm going to turn it over to you and let you just tell our viewers a little bit about what that is and use that as a starting point.
Well, we were in a charter school meeting about the next 3 years, and the report that they referred to and has become news is one dated August the 8th from DPI.
August 8th of this year?
This year.
Yes, sir.
And it notified us that in their review, they had found some detailed transactions that made up amounts of totaling $804,286.39 that needed corresponding supporting payment documentation. Of course, this was I would have to say it was a shock to me, because we had received on April the 24th of this year an ESSA review by DPI that said there were no requirements and no findings at all.
And just so our viewers know, an ESSA review is?
The ESSA review is, how did you spend the money from the federal government
Okay.
given to all public schools to help educate students through the COVID pandemic?
Yes, sir.
And thereafter. There's a little bit of ESSER money left, but most of it, everybody has spent.
Yes, sir.
Well, it's too early to know where the fault is, but I know where the responsibility is. The responsibility is on the board, and the board is determined to find out, all right, what happened, and to provide the detailed documentation for these journal entries and move forward. Today is 1 week from the beginning of school. So the urgent thing right now, in my mind, is getting ready for our students. We've had a change in leadership at the school. It happened at the end of July. The new leader was the director of operations, and she is an interim head of school. We had to move quickly, but it happens that the person who was there and the board found to be the right person for the school was in charge of the operations, which include accounting and management of funds. So we're glad to have somebody who is, we could say, backgrounded in that area.
Yes, sir.
And we had to move quickly because of the resignation of the former leader. Fortunately, we had a person that we felt we could go into the new school year with. We were really excited about a reset, honestly.
Let me go back for just a moment. So what the most current review that DPI did that came out on the 8th of August, I want to make sure that our viewers understand. When it says that there was $804,200, it's not saying
$286 and change.
And change. I'm not making fun of that. I'm not.
I'm not either. It's a big number.
It's a big number. Exactly what they're saying. They're not saying that money is missing.
No.
They're saying that it's not that it is. Well, I won't put words in it. It's not that it's. What are they actually saying when
they're actually saying that we need to identify detailed transactions that make up the amounts reported in journal entries.
Okay.
They're in the journal entries, but there needs some corresponding supporting payment documentation, and the journal entries have to be accurate. And that's what we know so far. Now, the first thing we did was we called the company with whom we worked in 2022, 21, 22. Actually, it's 20 and through 22. And said, we got this letter here. Would you look at it in detail? So I sent the whole letter.
And if I can interrupt you, the company that you're talking about provided what type of services to
Accounting and some other management
Okay.
and HR
Okay.
provisions.
Yes.
It's one of the larger companies in North Carolina that works with, supports charter schools.
And it's not, and I will say, ladies and gentlemen, it's not uncommon for not only charter schools or schools, but lots of organizations these days to outsource that type of service to a company that does nothing but that.
Well-
and I know that because a lot of my clients do the same thing.
Well, they're
Yeah.
experts.
Yes.
And we depend on them. They came back before the end of the day saying, we believe we can help you with this. And the reason I went first to them is that they know their systems, they know those journal entries, they know how they're put in there. They have a tracking system for what was done at which time with respect to what expenses and what journal entries. So we went to them first. They're going to give us a whole scope of work response this week, but Friday afternoon they said, yeah, we can help you on this.
And help me understand the company that you're talking about that you contacted on Friday. What they do is they take the information that is given to them and put it into their system.
Yes.
So if it's one of those situations where if they get incorrect information or they don't get complete information, all they can deal with is what they're given. It's not their responsibility to go out and gather the information.
They don't gather it, no. But every month they produce a report that says, here was the budget, and here are the different pots of money that come in. The money doesn't come in all at one time.
Okay.
There are various sources. Some of them are as federal funds, ESSER funds, at least in the last couple of years. State funds, local funds. In other words, for instance, Nash County Public Schools sends us money that is allocated to the students from Nash County that go to Rocky Mount Prep.
Yes.
That money comes in at different times. And then you have expenditures, and you compare the income and the expenditures, and you see where we are in the school year and how does that compare to the budget. All of that work they do. It's really complex. There are multiple people working on those accounts. The company is Charter Success, Charter Success Schools.
Okay.
The last, let's see if I've got it written down here. Reputable, very reputable company.
Yes, sir.
It's based in Durham, and we look forward to working with them, getting this straight. We are also going to do, another part of this was implement corrective actions, and so that this will never happen again. That part is a board thing. It has to do with policies, but it also has to do with another level of checks and balances, which we're going to do.
And Keen, am I correct in I'll just ask, when the board meets on a regular basis, finance and budget is one of the things that is presented to the board on a regular basis?
Every board meeting, every monthly board meeting, regular board meeting, we review finances. The board does not roll up its sleeve and go into the journal entries or anything like that. The question is,
You
what's the reporting?
have someone whose responsibility is to do that, who then makes the report to the board.
Exactly,
Yes.
and that's
Yes.
a combination of some staff in-house in the school, but generally these accounting companies, right now our company is named Acadia. They're a couple of the largest in the state. That's their job. And I know Charter Success well enough to be able to call up Corey Drawn, who I believe is the founder and president of the company. We had a very cordial talk, and he said, yes, I can help you.
You mentioned the time frame. When did you actually learn about this situation?
Well, on August the 8th, an email came into my mailbox. And as I said, having received on April 24th a clear bill of health,
Yes.
I was shocked. My immediate response is to let our attorney know. Be in touch with the new head of school, who is newly in place. So,
Yes, sir.
but to let them know this is what's going on, and to let the board know. At that time, we were preparing for a presentation before the state CSAB, Charter School Advisory Board,
Yes.
about our renewal. So I figured the most important thing is to talk to the charter board about our renewal
Yes.
and immediately handle this problem. The charter board brought it up, so having thought about it, we said we would take care of it.
What, if I can ask, and I can understand if you can't share this, what was the reaction of the charter board when you had that initial discussion?
I think the
with
charter board was likewise shocked. One of the reasons is that Rocky Mount Prep is one of the oldest prep schools in North Carolina.
I did not know that.
It was founded in 1997. It was not the first, but it was among the first. It is also not the largest, but it is among the largest. And not Kel Landis. It was founded by Rocky Mount businessmen with the purpose of providing a world-class education,
Yes.
free,
Yes,
for
sir.
students who otherwise could not get that.
But you had it was a good conversation with the board, and they
I would say it was a stern conversation with the
Okay.
board, which I understand. If I were in their place, I would be equally concerned. It's not a small amount of money. It's about 7% of the budget, but I mean, it's still
Yes.
a large number, and it does reflect a need for more controls. Board recognizes that, takes responsibility for that.
Ken, we're going to step aside right now for our first commercial break, but I want to talk a little bit more about this when we come back, and also a little bit about where Rocky Mount Prep goes at this point, what moving forward. And school starts in a week, so in terms of addressing that and students coming in. But we're going to step aside right now for a very quick commercial break. We're not going to have Fred's weather right now. Fred will come back and have his weather at right after the top of the 8 o'clock hour, and we'll be back right after these messages with more with Keen Grappling.
Put your graduate in one of the safest, most dependable cars in the market. Put them in a Chevrolet. For 3 years in a row, J.D. Powers has awarded Chevrolet the most dependable cars on the road today. Don Bullock Chevrolet has over 30 different makes of new cars and trucks right now, and you can save thousands. Pre-owned or new, we have it at the price you want. Doing business the better way, Don Bullock Chevrolet.
Shop local at Traded in Small Shops Mall. Traded is stocked full of gently used items, all backed by a 30-day warranty. Plus, when you shop at Traded and you bring some items you're not using anymore, you can get paid in cash on the spot. Next door, you can shop nearly 100 local merchants selling a variety of goods. Or you can open your own retail store at Small Shops Mall with no long-term lease.
Locals shop local. Traded in Small Shops Mall.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern. If you're shopping for furniture, stop into Aquila Furniture at 1540 North Wesleyan Boulevard in Rocky Mount. They have a powered reclining sofa and love seat with speakers, charging station, and reading lights for only $24.99. Two-sided queen mattress sets starting at $750. Bedroom suites, price drop to $899. Queen sleigh bedroom suite for $4,000 and king sleigh bed suite for $4,500. Aquila Furniture has appliances, Lazy Susan dinettes, sofa and love seat combinations, anything that you need to fully furnish your home. Financing is available. Come on in today. Don't let a deal on quality furniture pass you by.
Welcome back to the live morning show presented by Don Bullock Chevrolet. If you're looking for Fred's weather, we're going to push Fred back until the top of the next hour for his next weather forecast, because we're talking with Keene Gravely, chairman of the board of Rocky Mount Preparatory School. And Keene has been kind enough to come in this morning and share with us the board's comments and what's going on with some questions that were brought up by a conversation with the Department of Public Instruction last week. And Keene, thank you very much for coming in and proactively addressing this situation, and I think putting a lot of people's questions to rest in terms of where this is and what the board is doing to address these questions that have come up. Let's pivot now and talk a little bit about, you have a new interim director, head of school, and some of the programs that Rocky Mount Prep is looking at implementing or moving forward with this year.
Well, before I pivot, I want to remember that it was Bob Malden.
Bob Malden. We both were sitting here trying to put
Bob
a
Malden
name to a face.
And other businessmen in Rocky Mount felt that Rocky Mount students, particularly those who were underprivileged or minority members, needed the opportunity to go to a world-class school.
Yes.
And I think they did a great job starting it. Every great plan has got to be refurbished and sometimes reset. And we are in a reset. Now, the new interim head of school is Heather Collins, Dr. Heather Collins, who's got experience both in elementary education and also in higher education. She's got a number of years in terms of management of higher education. So we're very, very happy to have her in that position. We're not set on all of the positions that we're going to have, but the main thing is that we are resetting the vision and the expectation of the staff, the parents, and the students. To have a world-class organization, you've got to have world-class teachers, you've got to have world-class processes, and world-class expectations. Students have had a very rough road ever since COVID came in.
Yes.
No education in person for more than a year. The deficit of learning is high. It's recognized by DPI. Everybody will talk about that. And someone said to me the other day, well, COVID is over. Let's don't talk about that anymore. Well, wait a minute.
No.
If you had a child who was in kindergarten and never saw his or her teacher's face because they were covered like this or only remotely, you're talking about really critical language learning years. It's going to take a while to recover from that.
You can take that up to high school with students who had been in in-person classrooms all their academic careers, then were forced into online classes, which both they were unaccustomed to and the system was unaccustomed to providing. And some of the things can translate better to online, perhaps English and language arts, but you have a difficult time telling me that something like calculus or physics translates well to an online situation. It just doesn't work that way.
It's very difficult. It's very important also to understand some people learn well that way.
Some
I
don't.
would have to say most people up to college don't learn better that way.
Yes.
Those who do learn better that way just simply soar and go forward because they go forward at the pace of interest and proficiency.
Yes.
That's not the case for most of our students. Now, one of the things we're excited about is that in the last couple of years, we've established a college and career path at the high school level.
Okay.
Students have to have a certain grade point level, which will allow them to qualify to go into Nash Community College or Edgecombe Community College or across the street at Wesleyan. We're tremendously blessed to be situated across from Wesleyan University. Caught it that time. That's exciting. We also have a full staff, not only of teachers. Now, we may be looking for a couple of teachers, but we have, as everybody is looking for a
As
couple of
everyone
teachers.
is, yes.
But we have supporting staff who know how to teach teachers and know how to implement things, for instance, like this. We hadn't done this before, but we're going to do it this year. When the bus rolls in, the minute hand starts. Minute by minute planning. From the bus to the classroom bell rings, from the bell ringing all the way to the bell ringing at the end of it. Learning needs to be taking place bell to bell, and then minute by minute to the buses and leaving.
You know, Keen, I can almost hear some of our viewers thinking, that's too regimented. That leaves no time for freedom of expression, or it leaves no time for a student to have time to digest what is going on. My guess is, though, that what you're trying to do, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, is that what you're trying to instill in them is a sense of consistency and pattern and discipline that says, as they move forward in their academic careers and in their lives, that yes, it's good for me to be able to say, I'll wake up in the morning and I know what I'm going to do. If at 8:45 I'm going to do this, at 9:45 I'm going to do this, to try and help as many people need to have the structure to better live their life and better learn. Is that something along those lines?
I would agree with that. I would also say that structure provides freedom for expression.
Yes.
If you use the first minutes of every class and the last minutes of every class, you've got more minutes.
Yes.
In that time, you can have all the things that take place, sometimes freedom of expression. A lot of times you're talking about assessments that go minute by minute, literally. A teacher looks around the classroom and takes a quick scan. It doesn't take 5 seconds to, the student's with me, that student is not paying attention right now. So I just go over there, get close to that, stand close to that student, help that student refocus. This student clearly doesn't quite have the concept. So all of that formative assessment is going on all the time. What we're planning to do is use all of the time that we've got, as opposed to not be careful about starting right after the bell, and not be careful about teaching up to the bell. On time is interesting. You know, if you're late at the bus stop by 10 seconds, you missed the bus.
Yes.
So we need to learn to be not just on time, but a little bit ahead of time, planning ahead. These are skills that these students will use for the rest of their lives.
Yes. Tell us a little bit more about the college program. For those students that qualify for it, they are spending part of their days on campus at Rocky Mount Prep and part of their days at either Nash or Edgecombe Tech or
Sometimes they're at
Wesleyan?
Nash Community College, sometimes they may be at Wesleyan, but they're getting college-level instruction and they get college credits.
Okay. As well as high school credits.
Well,
correct?
high school
Yes,
credits
yes.
count for high school graduation,
Yes.
but they also count, just as the early college high school, which is so successful in Nash County and in other counties, aims so that a student can graduate from high school with a semester or a year or 2 years of college level credit.
Which translates into college costing less money.
Half of it.
In
If you get 2 years, it's going to cost you half.
in today's environment, a semester makes a big difference too with the
It
cost
does
of it.
indeed. Let me tell you one other program. We are using a program called AVID to help students learn how to take notes, summarize, write, and express. And that program, it's an acronym. It stands for Advancement via Individual Determination.
Okay.
So these are skills that we believe everybody needs, and successful people use them all the time, even without thinking about it. We want our students not just to graduate from high school, but to graduate with dreams and capacities to fill those dreams.
Yes. Do you have any data on the students that have gone through the college prep? And I'm sorry, I forget
You mean the college and career
the college and career, yes.
academy?
Do you have any statistics on where some of those students are now? They're in college or
That's an interesting question. We know at graduation these students are going into these careers, and these students are going or have been accepted
Yes.
into these colleges. Many of them are historically black colleges,
Yes, sir.
which is important and good. But I don't have a record that says, Lemanuel graduated 3 years ago and this is where he is. I don't have that.
Okay. As we begin, our time goes by so quickly on these interviews.
Yes.
As we begin to wrap things up, if someone has heard who's listened to our conversation, if they have questions or further questions, where can they go to? First of all, questions about the current situation, and/or questions about wanting to learn more about Rocky Mount Prep. Is it too late to get someone in this semester if they're interested?
No, it's getting to the end. I mean, we have about 300 people who are waiting, who would
Okay.
like to come into the school. Right now, the school is about 975 students, reduced in its size so that we could make sure that we have teachers
Yes.
for all of these students. And I would have to say, yeah, apply. We are not, however, bringing in high school students. And the reason for that is that we want to be able to grow the student through elementary and then middle school so that they know this is how things are at Rocky Mount Prep. It's an at-will school, and you're not assigned to
Yes.
Rocky Mount Prep. You have to want to be part of Rocky Mount Prep. And
So your suggestion to parents would be if you have an elementary school student,
elementary or middle.
that if this is something that you're interested in, to have more information, and if they reach the point where they think this is a viable option for their student, to submit an application.
Absolutely. It's on the website. Anybody who wants to talk to me directly, my email is kgravely, that's GRAVELY, @rmprep.org.
And we'll have that here at the station if folks would like that. Keen, any last words? What would you like for our viewers to take away from our conversation today?
Well, I think I want people to know that Rocky Mount Prep is going to address this problem properly and thoroughly. We own the problem. As the board is responsible.
Can we say publicly as well, too, to let the folks know the resolution for this?
Oh, the resolution will come down, but it's not until in November Our response is due November the 2nd,
Okay.
and then there's going to be a response to that.
Okay.
So it's on down the line. But the main thing I want people to know is that Rocky Mount Prep is determined to offer a world-class education for its students. That's our purpose, our aim, our goal, and we are going to execute that.
Ken, first of all, thank you. I just have to ask you, did you think this was the sort of thing you were going to be dealing with when you joined the board and became chairman of the board?
I don't think anybody expects to run across this.
Again, I'm not making light of it, but this is the sort of thing that when people say, would you like to consider joining our board, that people need to think about, because these are real life situations that
These
come
are.
up, and it is the responsibility of the board as the leader of an organization like this to address them.
I would have to say the reason I'm on the board is I have a passion for educating children. And I believe in the vision that Bob Malden projected. It needs to be world class. World class. The best. I've had the opportunity to attend some world class schools, including Yale and Columbia. I went to a high school named Woodbury Forest.
Yes, sir.
People who go to Woodbury Forest say, I got my education at Woodbury Forest. I also had fantastic teachers at Rocky Mount High School. I'm telling you the truth.
Yes,
my
sir.
vocabulary was built in a public school. It has to be the determination of the school to make sure students get what they need.
Yes, sir. I want to end by this. The board sent a letter out to parents and to the community on Saturday. Let me just read this to end with. You were asked about the world-class free public education Rocky Mount area, but you said in 2 words, that means better grades. Better grades means better skills for better lives after Rocky Mount Prep. We want our graduates to soar confidently into their chosen hopes and plans. Doing so will be a year after year effort to which we will all be committed. Better grades. I think that says it can be looked at on many different levels, not just from an academic standpoint, but better grades across the board.
Absolutely.
Keen, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
Appreciate
for
it.
coming. Appreciate it. This has been Keen Gravely, Chairman of the Board of Rocky Mount Prep. We appreciate him giving us so much time this morning to discuss this issue. Again, if you would like to get in touch with Rocky Mount Prep, they have an online website to look at, and Keen's email address will be here at the station if you would like to reach out to address him directly. We're going to step aside right now for our top of the hour commercial breaks. When we come back, my co-host Wayne Holloman will be here, and we're going to change topics to talk about the proposed casino and the meeting that was held Friday night by the majority of the people who have questions about bringing the casino to the community. You're watching the Live Morning Show presented by Don Bullock Chevrolet, and we'll be right back. As promised, Wayne is here, and he's here, although I'm surprised that he is.
Well, you know.
The Braves lost a game last night, and this is the way the man goes. He is high when they're winning. They lose a game with a 13-game lead in their division, and he is morose. He is that. I'm truly. I almost called him to see what his state of mental health was this morning.
Almost didn't make it in.
I know. I have no doubt about that. It is amazing. But you toughed through it, and you're here.
I'm here, and that's what matters.
It's amazing.
That is what matters.
It's amazing.
I made it through. Well, as we have spent a lot of our time, Lim, in the last couple of weeks discussing about the casino and all things possible in regards to the casino, we highlighted the meeting that was going to take place on this past Friday. That meeting did take place. Now, I don't know how many of you. It was about a 2-hour meeting, best I could tell. And in full disclosure, I didn't watch the entire meeting. I definitely bounced around and got what I figured would be the gist of everything and made a couple of notes, but I did not. I just want to be honest in saying I did not listen to the entire thing. So there may be parts or a perspective of certain things that I have that if somebody heard something, that's why we want you to let us know the perspective of this. But here's the thing. I did get 6 or 7 major points and thoughts out of this. And so we'll open with just kind of what this was. It was an information session, basically, the Pastor Harper, stood up and basically at the beginning of the meeting, Lim, he said this was a meeting that they felt necessary to have based on a lot of the rumors that were spreading. And that's with anything. People are going to spread all kinds of rumors. He said, I want to have a meeting that is based upon facts. I think it's very obvious going into the meeting where he stands with this, and where he was hoping that many if not all of the local pastors and leadership would feel, but wanted to bring people together. Now, here's the interesting part, Lim. Going into this meeting, one of the biggest questions was, why do politicians need to speak at this? Or even if they speak, how much merit should we give? It's most of the time in a situation like this, when politicians speak, many people would accuse them of using it as a political prop for their own agendas or whatnot. I mean, you kind of can't fault them for that. That's what politicians do, right? They have to respond to things. That's kind of where they make their name. But a lot of people were a little bit weary of the fact that not necessarily that the politicians were going to be there, but that they were going to speak. And I watched all this stuff prior to the meeting. We shouldn't be listening to the politicians. Why would they even have a voice here? This needs to be about the people. And I don't want to hear someone's political agenda. So I think that the pastor did a good job of saying at the very beginning, this will not be a political rally. This will not be something along those lines. Now, Lim, as you kind of thought about the meeting and we watched it, would you say you were in agreement with that? Because politicians were invited, but how important was it to have this type of session where the people, they were able to write down their questions, they turned them in, they got to as many of them as they think they got to most, if not all of the questions. How important was that for this meeting to be the voice of the people in your perspective?
Well, first of all, let's make sure that we understand that you don't have to be in an elected position to be a politician, and you don't have to be in a truly political position to be a politician. Make no mistake, Clee Atkinson and Keith Stone are politicians.
Oh,
they are
absolutely.
sheriffs. They're politicians too.
Yeah.
That because their very livelihood for their departments depends on their ability to work within the political system.
Yep.
You have a number of people that were in the audience that were politicians because they're advocating for one side or the other.
That is true.
So to say that you were going to take politicians out of the mix, all you might have done would be able to take some of the truly elected politicians out of it, and they were there.
Yeah.
So the reality of it is that this had quickly become a political discussion in a political situation. So from that standpoint, it was. With regards to the people, let's remember, this is almost an immeasurable number of people that came to the meeting. It was limited. So so we knew what pretty much the maximum cap was going to be that could be there to be able to address the topics that they wanted to.
Right.
Whether this was representative or not, I don't know. I applaud the pastor for having it. You could make the case that if you wanted also to take a religion out of it, it should not have been held at a church. Again, if you want to start eliminating factors into this, why was that not brought up? Sure. So I don't know. It was positive and it was good in that it gave people an opportunity for the first time, for some of them, to express their concerns, feelings, and have that brought out in a public format to which someone, politician or otherwise, tried to address it.
Now, I will say, from what I gathered from watching the meeting, from the comments that I listened to, and quite frankly, Lim, I still, look, and this is not me trying to sway anybody any particular way. If I'm just going by the pulse of that meeting and the pulse of the people that have communicated their feelings to me, and I'm only basing it off that, I think it is very obvious that if this were left to the vote of the people, straight up vote of the people, it would be voted down very easily. And that's, like I say, that's me doing my own little whatever you want to call it. So here's where this is going to be, in my opinion, interesting to watch. And I waited to make that statement until this meeting took place. I already kind of felt that was the case, but after watching this meeting and continuing to talk to people all week and all weekend, I will have no problem in saying I feel personally, if it was left to the vote of the people, that this would be voted down no easily. So that leads us down the path of where a lot of people felt, Lim. This is a situation in which we feel should be in the hands of the people. And that's the whole point of coming to a meeting. If I'm going to come to a meeting like this and ultimately my voice isn't going to be heard, then what is the point of these type of meetings anyway?
Well, as we go to break, I just want to give you and our viewers this to think about. In today's environment, it is a lot more acceptable to come out nay.
Yeah, I agree.
People who
I
oppose
agree.
something and who feel morally outraged or upset about it, whatever, are much more likely to express their feelings than people that are in support of it. You go into a store. You had the golf course.
Right.
People come out. You have two foursomes. One has a great experience. One has a not so great
That
experience.
happened all
Which
the time.
which one are you going to hear from?
I'm going to hear from the one that didn't have a good
The one that
experience.
didn't agree
Yeah,
with things. The
right.
one that had a great experience is going to say.
They just go on by, yeah.
So,
they're happy, they move on.
So
yeah.
in this respect, we had and I would also say to you, if you were really a proponent of this, you may have been intimidated by going to that meeting because it was pretty obvious where the focus was going to be.
Absolutely.
And that would be enough to drive folks away.
No doubt.
So I would say that whether this is, I do not know whether this is representative or not. And there's another fact too as we go to break. People can say one thing all they want, but if they go into that booth, how they vote can turn out to be very differently.
100% agree.
Because
Yep.
it could very well be that they're saying, this is wrong, I disagree with it on all these grounds. But if they have a family member or a friend who said, you know what, this could really turn me around. If I get this job, I'm going to make good money. It's good. And when it comes right down to it, people will vote their pocketbooks more than many times they'll vote their morals and ethics. What they say is one thing, how they vote is something else.
Absolutely, 100% agree. I think that is a very good analogy. It's not always just, you're right, the people that have negative feelings about something definitely, and that's a restaurant as well, particularly a restaurant.
It's life.
Yeah, if I go to a restaurant and I enjoyed it, I'm much more less likely to say something positive. But if I have a complaint, I'm going to find that manager, I'm going to tell them point blank. So you're exactly right. As we get ready for a break, we definitely want to continue this discussion. Just a couple of announcements. Golden East Crossing Mall is having a job fair August 24th from 2 to 4 and a back-to-school bash Saturday, August 26th from 12 to 2, giving away 100 backpacks full of school supplies and a $100 gift card to Children's Place and other fun activities for the kids. We'll have a couple more community announcements right when we return. Much more on this meeting. I've got several other points I want to make out. The marketing potential, and they talked about how much there, and you got to look at it from that perspective. We'll take a quick break and return right after this. Stay. And we are back. We are live. We are excited to bring you the last 10 minutes of Monday's live morning show as we are approaching the halfway point of the month of August.
Let me just alert viewers that within the next several weeks, Dr. Tom English, psychiatrist, counselor of Northridge Northridge Counseling Services, is going to be our guest. Tom is going to talk about addiction in general and gambling addiction in particular, because I think it's important as we move forward with this discussion that as we talk about positive and negatives, if people are concerned about that this may drive more folks towards a gambling addiction, well, let's talk a little bit about someone who works in the field, who has an understanding of it. Gambling addiction is different from addiction to drugs or alcohol. It has a different genesis, it has a different outcome, and to talk about how some very surprising statistics that are already available and some services already available in the state for people who have gambling addictions that we will talk about to put into context this for the folks that are both for and against the casino coming to the area.
Absolutely. I want to circle back my last point that I wrote down that I think will be vital that came out of this meeting. And I didn't realize this until seeing it when Sheriff Stone was speaking. And And once again, keep in mind here that what we are discussing here was this was an informational session. The point of it, and Sandra made it very clear, it was definitely from the people there, it was more of a negative bashing type, we don't want it here kind of thing. But you hope that even for those folks that came with their mind made up one way, that at least hear both sides and be willing to change your mind. Okay, that's just what we should be as responsible citizens. You can have your initial opinion, listen to the other side, and at least be open to potentially changing your mind. Now, here's something that I thought one of the biggest concerns that has come out of this, Lim, from people that are opposing it or not quite sure or not comfortable with it is, and Robbie Davis mentioned this in his interview with us Tuesday, the potential for crime increases has been a big part of this, and Sheriff Stone addressed that. I expected nothing less from him because that is his job, is to make the community feel safe. With the potential, Lim, for additional crime, whether it's human trafficking, whether it's drugs, whether it's anything, stealing, theft, whatever would accompany potential gambling addictions, he brought up an interesting point, saying that right now the Nash County Sheriff's Office, Lim, is 15 deputies short, which could potentially make them a little bit more ill prepared for any potential fallout from this casino if people are going along the lines of this brings in more crime that has the potential. So, Lim, we saw how the police department was, 40 members short 6, 7, 8 months ago. They raised the initial pay. People have started joining the force a little bit more. With Sheriff Stone making that comment, I think it was just his way of saying, look, if this is a real situation, if you buy into this, you may want to consider, with crime on the increase potentially, that we are short in the department right now. Now, Lim, do we know that when this casino is built, if it is built, maybe Nash County is fully staffed at that point? We don't know, because it's not like the casino is going to start tomorrow or even 2 or 3 months from now. But how important, Lim, do you think that comment from, because that's what he led with. I feel like anytime somebody leads with a particular thing, that's the point they want to emphasize. I felt like that was what he was really trying to drive home, saying we're already short. There's a big potential here for possibly more crime in relation to this. What did you feel about that opening statement from the sheriff?
Well, I think there are two different points there. One, should we demand as Nash County residents that the sheriff's department be fully staffed? I don't know that we need the casino to have, or discussion to have that discussion. Yeah. If we believe in effective law enforcement, then we should be fully staffed, and as the Rocky Mount Police Department should be fully staffed. Mm-hmm. This is not a defund the police or defund the sheriff's argument. That's a common sense argument that makes everyone safer. If we're going to say that, then we can have a discussion about whether or not bringing a casino into the area would increase crime or not. Because, back to the original point, both sides have their own set of facts. Both sides may be cherry picking their facts. Both sides may be accurately representing them. I don't know. But there are statistics around both sides that say, yes, it does, no, it doesn't. But the fact that we don't have enough deputies to fully allow the sheriff's department to do is an issue in and unto itself. Mm-hmm. I applaud Sheriff Stone for bringing it up and making that statement to that fact to the public. But that's a decision that Nash County needs to address, and that the county commissioners need to address, to fund this department and make it so that the sheriff can effectively hire, train, and retain deputies in Nash County.
Yeah, absolutely. So the fallout from this, and what will be interesting, is where this goes from here. Big movement out there for this to be the vote of the people. There's others that want more government involvement, making those type of decisions. This situation is no different from anything else, let's be honest. Anything that comes across with high level emotion, high variance of opinions, it's going to go down that road. each and every time. It will be interesting to watch this and to see how much of a movement this was this meeting necessarily all for naught, really, and decisions have already been made and what's going to happen is going to happen. Some people feel that way. Or was there a lot that came out of this meeting that may sway the direction of where we go with this? I've always felt like people should at least always feel like they have a voice. Their voice matters. Your voice can matter, Lim, and it not necessarily be what you want. It can still matter. I think that's where we have to get to the point where we feel like when people come to these type of things that they're at least heard and they are heavily considered in those regards. Only time will tell if this is one of those cases.
Taking that, then the General Assembly should not have done this in private. They should have opened it up at the very beginning. The public's voice would have been heard right off the bat with this.
There you go. As we wrap up and get prepared for rolling into tomorrow's show, Relay for Life of Nash County is going to take place Saturday, August the 26th from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Ennis Park. That is in Red Oak. All kinds of information that you can get. You can go to relayforlife.org/NashNC. That will give you all the information, all the events, when everything's happening, kind of the history, why they're doing it, information about the survivors, laps, luminaries, all the things that you can do to fundraise, to attend, and to donate. That is Saturday, August the 26th from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Ennis Park. Also, the Rocky Mount Reggae Fest with Maurice Hammond and friends, Friday, August the 18th. So that is this Friday, 6 p.m. at the Rocky Mount Event Center. All kinds of reggae music and entertainers will be at this event this Friday, August the 18th at 6 p.m. Go to Rocky Mount Event Center's website to purchase your tickets today. Lim, it feels like time flew by. For me, it probably did, because I was only here for an hour. I was recovering from my anxiety from Sunday night baseball, and I just don't know what we're going to do with 6 weeks left in the season and only a 12-game lead. Lim,
I feel your pain. That's horrible for you.
It is. It is a very tough moment. We will be right back here with you tomorrow on the Tuesday edition of the Live Morning Show. Thank you for joining us today. And we will see you tomorrow. Make it a great Monday, everyone.
I want to thank King Bradley for spending so much of his time with us and bringing us the most current facts about Rocky Mount Prep. Have a great day, folks. Be careful out there and be very wary of the heat. Don't go out this afternoon unless you absolutely have to.